welcome to Smashterpieces, a casual walk through the history of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate roster. My name is Joe.
And my name is Matt.
And if you're new here, what we are doing on this show is we are playing one game for every character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate from 1984's Duck Hunt to 2019's Fire Emblem Three Houses, except this one is not that. This is a bonus. And bonus episodes are what we do when we're taking too long on a game, which you'd think would not be the case when we played said game in October of 2020, but that's just what puts us apart from the pack, baby.
I say, if a game's gonna take us more than a month, we should have a bonus episode. That's all I'm saying. We even planned in the past to, just have a backlog of them ready to go whenever we need them, and then we didn't.
Hey, I played 2 bonus episode games, including this one. Ball's been in your court this time. Usually it's me, but usually 99% of the time it's me. Anyways, we're here to do a little bonus episode on new Pokémon Snap, because legally we are required to do so, as we willed it into existence with our very minds.
This game was created by us. You're welcome.
We made this game happen. You cannot prove otherwise. This game was literally announced the day after we recorded our Pokémon Snap episode, in which we said word for word, there will never be a sequel. Oops! So yeah, there's a sequel to Pokémon Snap now.
Yep, and it is pretty much just new Pokémon Snap.
Yeah, it's exactly what it says on the tin.
It is largely the same game, just more.
And prettier. Much, much prettier.
Yeah.
This game is, especially for a Switch game, absolutely gorgeous.
Oh yeah, I think that's the game's greatest strength, because when you have a game that is really just about nature photography, the landscape and the animals that are populating it are the entire idea of the game, and getting pictures of them that look good means that that landscape and those animals need to look good as well. So
yeah, they need to be damn pretty if I'm going to be staring at them for multiple trips.
I think it was Bandai Namco that developed this, and I think that
I believe so. Yes,
they did a really good job of it. I think it's one of those cases where it's they just did the work and people from the Pokemon Company made all the decisions. And to that end, I would say that Bandai Namco did a fantastic job programming the video game.
Yeah. A lot of people, so the thing that I saw so many fucking times was people going why can't Pokemon Sword and Shield look like this? It's because Pokemon Sword and Shield isn't a game set on rails where they can control what you can and can't see at all times.
Yep.
That's why this game is so pretty. That's why the animations are so good. If you could just, I know a lot of people were kind of hoping, maybe they'll just let us free ride around this island and take pictures of Pokemon. And if they did that, this game would not be nearly as pretty. The animations would not be nearly as good.
And the fact that it's basically scripted is also a big part of that.
Yeah. That all is the way it is because the game is on rails, and they know when things are going to happen. They know what's going to cause what behavior, that kind of thing. Not that they ever tell you that, and not that you'll ever figure out how any of the fucking behaviors work, but it's such a pretty game, and it's the best 3D models Pokemon have ever had, which is really cool.
Yeah, they didn't just use the stock models that are used in the mainline games. That I could be wrong. I haven't seen anyone actually go into the game files and export the models, but it looks like they're all new models.
I'm pretty sure they're all new models. I don't think the stock models they used for the regular games have a whole lot of flexibility in terms of how they can animate. If I had to guess, these seem because they're a lot more emotive too. In Snap, they make different faces, and they move in a certain way that feels like a realistic animal would move, that kind of thing.
And I think that's that's something that I really liked in this game. It's not even something that I feel like the original Pokemon Snap went for, and it's especially something that you don't see in the mainline games. It's seeing the Pokemon act like the animals they're based off of, because that is like 100% what all of them are doing. You could find like a big spider web that an Ariados would be hanging around, and that's just a normal thing that I feel like you never get to see in the main games. You get to see
Bidoof build a dam.
Yeah, and swimming down the river, like carrying wood in its mouth to build this dam. You see Hoot Hoot sleeping in like the little nook of a tree. You can see a group of Murkrow that are just kind of like scavenging around for any leftover food, and then when you get close, they scatter. It's stuff like that you never get to see in the main games that I think is really cool in this game. And it's something that I feel like you didn't really even get in the original Pokemon Snap. In the original Pokemon Snap, they felt like they were more characters playing out their part in that level's story. Here, it really feels like a nature adventure more than ever before.
To be fair, the original only felt like that because it was made on a Nintendo 64, and there's really only so much they could do.
I mean, I would say that even like the choices that they made as to like what would be going on in the levels in the original Pokemon Snap didn't feel like it was very nature. Mm-hmm. It felt like there were specific things that the Pokemon were consciously doing rather than just like kind of living.
Yeah, I could see that. Like, you can pass Pokemon that are just like sleeping. My favorite, it was my Twitter avatar for a little bit, was just Quagsire sitting down in a shallow pool of water, staring straight ahead, motionless, that's what a Quagsire would be like.
Yeah.
Or like in that same level, a Wooper will jump into the water and Quagsire, presumably its parent, will start playing with it. You have in Florio National Park, I think my favorite one is there's a Magikarp. That Magikarp that's laying on the rock. And during the day, there are two Ducklet just sort of watching it. And if you hit it with an Illumina orb, it like jumps up in the air and the Ducklets are like, this is the coolest shit. It's awesome.
You can also lure a Pidgeot towards that Magikarp, and then it'll just grab it and fly away.
Yeah,
it's like goodbye,
it's so
Magikarp.
Good.
But it's also just like I'm just looking at like all the different Pokemon in Florio National Park right now, and it's like you see Heracross, and it's like Heracross is just kind of like clinging to a tree like a beetal does, except it's human sized, so it just looks like terrifying. This dude hanging onto a tree. And then Tangrowth is there, and I never realized before how much I don't want to see Tangrowth in person.
They're way bigger than you'd think they are.
Oh, yeah.
They're fucking huge. Like, what the hell? They're huge and their fucking arms stretch in a frankly upsetting manner.
The Pokemon that I saw with the most, though, is Archeops in the volcano, which I don't even remember what gen this Pokemon is from. I'm not certain I've ever seen it before.
5? I think it's Gen 5.
But, like, the way that they're kind of, like, running around to just kind of, like, low-key antagonizing other Pokemon, but also they're clearly not very powerful and will just run away at the smallest sign of danger. Like, that feels very much like a raptor. Like, that's cool. That's cool.
Especially if it's a fucking Tyrantrum. Just walking into which that's also I'm in danger moment. Cool.
I can't remember if I said this on the original Pokemon Snap episode, but I feel like more than ever, it's something that Ben once told me about the original Jurassic Park movie, where the premise is we're going to stick you in a Jeep, you're going to see some cool stuff, and maybe you'll be safe.
I mean, yeah, that checks out. That's essentially how it goes. I think another one of my favorites, though, is in the desert. With the Cacneas, and they'll like roll down a hill, and then they'll get caught in this sand vortex that I believe the implication is a Flygon. has made it, because if I remember correctly, I got a Flygon out of there at one point.
Maybe.
But it picks up the Cacnea and just fucking throws it into space. And another one of my favorite goddamn pictures that I got was just this Cacnea being almost a fucking speck in the distance, up in the air, like Team Rocket's blasting off again style. Or on the reef, where you're going over the reef, and one of the first things that can happen is a Wingull will come down and snatch up a Finneon, and you can get like, it passes right in front of your face if you're looking in the right spot. And like, that's amazing. You know what Pokemon is upsetting to me to see walking around in the wild, though?
What?
Machamp. There is no world where I feel like a Machamp should be allowed to walk around in nature. That's not an animal. That's a dude.
Yeah, Machamp's just a guy.
He's just a dude who happens to have 4 arms. Like, no, you can't do that. It's not allowed.
You can get a picture of a Machamp swimming, and this is not an animal. This is a guy.
He's doing a butterfly stroke.
Yeah.
He's doing a normal swimming move that humans do. It's upsetting. I don't like it. And I'm pretty sure that's the only one that feels like that specifically.
It is undoubtedly the most human Pokemon in this game, I think. I can't think of another one that's anywhere close.
Or it's also just cool to see, like, the natural interactions between the animals. Because, like, when you see that Machamp swimming, it's because he's fucking racing either a Mantine or a Sharpedo. I'm pretty sure it's a Sharpedo. And it's because they're racing. But the other one that I really liked was on the reef once again. You could see a bunch of Marini chasing a Corsola. And then you remember that according to Marini's Pokedex entry, they eat Corsola.
Oh no.
So that Corsola is about to die. So, you know, that's actually, I believe, how you get a Marini in Sun and Moon. It might not be the only way, but like, if you get a horde battle with a bunch of Corsola and they continue to call for help, sometimes a Marini can show up because dinner time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that kind of thing that, like, it's so cool to, this is the closest we've ever seen to, like, Pokemon are a thing. They're just animals living out in the wild, and also Machamp is there. And yeah, I think you put it really well. It's like, this is the closest we've ever seen to that. Because they're supposed to be animals, but the context and the way Pokemon games work, they can't really get that across.
Yeah.
Because how are you going to get that? Like, the wild area is probably the best they're going to be able to do.
And they still didn't really go for that at all in the wild area.
Like, the wild area is just, some Pokemon are out here, but, like, the problem is they can't really make Pokemon that just act like animals and then also make an RPG around that, because that's too much. Mm-hmm. People that expect that are insane. Again, we said at the beginning of the show, the only reason new Pokemon Snap can do that is because you're on rails. Everything's scripted.
Yeah. And I'm not even really sure that this would make for a good mainline Pokemon game if they did all these things in it. Like, it's an awful lot of work for what in a mainline game would be basically nothing.
Yeah.
That's why I think Pokemon Snap is such a good sub-series to have for this franchise, because that means that we now have this opportunity to see them in these wild habitats. Like, that's a really cool thing. And it's not just, oh, we spent way too much development time on this one little animation where a Pokemon's doing a cool thing. Instead, this is a core part of the gameplay loop. And that is something that I think is really cool, because you don't see that a lot in games like this. I mean, Pokemon is like the biggest one in the world, so of course it's going to be the monster collecting game that does stuff like that, but it's still not even a thought in most other franchises like this.
Well, also, just, you can't do the structure of a regular Pokemon game with this kind of thing. It just doesn't work. It's never going to work. Like, random encounters do not mesh with this, and Pokemon's kind of built on random encounters.
Yeah.
Even the wild area is technically, they're not random encounters, but like that's probably the farthest they can get.
Well, even like now in Sword and Shield, like there are no random encounters anymore at all.
Well,
but
there are if you're not in the wild area.
I thought they completely got rid of random encounters.
I feel like maybe. I don't remember now that I think.
Let's be honest, we're probably going to play that game for this show someday. We'll talk about it then. But
don't say that.
But even then, random encounters or no, you can't have this kind of behavior in all of the Pokemon for a mainline game because there's gameplay clarity that you need to do. You need to be able to clearly see what Pokemon you're about to fight. And that's just not as possible with this.
Yeah, like you can't do the Ariados hiding in the tree above the web in a regular Pokemon game because you won't be able to fucking find it.
Yeah. So
But that being said, speaking of gameplay loop, this game has both a very good one and also a very bad one, somehow coexisting.
So, you know how I said that it's just Pokemon Snap but more? Sometimes more isn't always better.
For instance, don't you want to grind photo scores to unlock other levels? Isn't that the dream you've always had?
How about doing it 3 times for every single level?
I think some of them are 4. I think I got to level 3 on one of them and it didn't say max. So
I don't think that there is a level 4 for any levels. There's just you can max out level 3, and I haven't figured out why you'd want to yet because I haven't maxed out any level 3s. But
yeah, so the way that new Pokemon Snap works in the original Pokemon Snap, every Pokemon you took a picture of, each Pokemon got 1 picture. That's it. That's all that went in your Pokemon report. You could save them to your album, however many you fucking want, but on the actual Pokemon report, they get 1, and it's always going to be the best scoring one. Well, in new Pokemon Snap, all of them have 4, but they're divided into star ratings. So there is a 1-star, a 2-star, a 3-star, a 4-star. Now you might be asking yourself, oh, so what differentiates these? To which I have to tell you, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, it's, the only real consistency I've found is that if you throw an apple at a Pokemon and catch them at the moment of the assault, that's probably a 2-star picture.
It's called a fluff fruit because Bandai Namco are cowards.
I don't even care.
It's
the moment
soft
of the
and fluffy.
The evidence that's going into the police report is usually a 2-star photo.
Yeah.
Everything else, figure it out. Pure trial and error.
Sometimes you'll see like a behavior you've never seen before for whatever reason. And you're like, oh, that has to be a star rating I haven't gotten. And then it's not.
Then it's level 1?
Yeah, and like you're like, so then why is that fucking behavior in the game, Bandai? Like, yeah, it's cool to look at, but fuck, man. And it's inconsistent for like every single thing. In this game, much like in Pokemon Snap, you have 3 things that can potentially cause new behaviors to happen. You have the Fluff Fruit, which is the apple. You have the Illumina Orb, which replaces the Pester Ball, so that you're not throwing balls of poison at Pokemon in this game. And then you have the Music Maker that has 1 song, and I never noticed it doing anything to any Pokemon ever. There are like 2 Pokemon I saw react to it. That's basically it.
I actually think that is like so lame. There's no reason for the music player in this game because like I tried to use it constantly and it never did anything.
I think I saw Hoot Hoot dance to it once. That's it.
Oh,
that's all I ever saw. Maybe an Onyx dance to it. I don't fucking know. It does basically nothing. Even in the game, they're like try playing it to wake up sleeping Pokemon, and then you fucking ride by a herd of sleeping Torterra, and you play the music, and it does nothing.
Yeah. Well, I'm also thinking of, like, that slaking in the jungle. Like, that looks like it's asleep. It's not paying attention. I figure that I'm supposed to play music for that, right? No.
It's just, it's so... And honestly, Illumina orbs also, most of the time, don't seem to fucking do anything. Like, that's the problem with both of those items, is they both just sort of seem like, yeah, sometimes they'll do something. But most of the time, they won't.
It's just, there's so much trial and error you have to do, but it's so much more error than anything else is the problem. Like, it's not, like, it can be fun to just be thrown into this sandbox and be like, just try things out, figure it out. That can be fun. But when there's, like, a million possible things you can do, and only like 30 of those things are going to give you any feedback whatsoever, except for when you're throwing apples, then, like, everything's going to react to an apple.
Yeah, that's literally the only thing that will always get a reaction out of any Pokemon, is throwing the fruit.
Yeah, it's just, it feels bad, and it feels like grinding. And
it is grinding.
I don't think Pokemon Snap is a game that needed grinding.
It didn't need grinding at all. And honestly, in my opinion, a lot of this would sort of be alleviated if, like, you could present more than one picture of a Pokemon per time.
Oh, that's the worst. That is the worst.
You can get a 1-star and a 2-star and a 3-star in the same trip, but you only get to show one of them, and the rest of them go to hell. There's
so many Pokemon that, like, the first time I ever saw them, I got 3 different star ratings for them, but I can only show one.
Yeah, and it's
fun.
Just, it's so arbitrary, and I think it's completely because the original only lets you show one picture. But the original...
No, it's padding. It's padding. It's a conscious choice to extend the game length.
Well, yeah, but also, in one, it made sense because you only get one picture. That is by far, mechanically the worst part of the game.
Yeah. And the biggest problem with the star ratings is just how, like, they're not explained at all. Yeah, like, they really aren't. They don't even really do a good job of explaining that it has nothing to do with the quality of the photo. Like, the quality of the photo is completely irrelevant to its star rating.
The star rating makes it seem like it is about the quality, because that's how we rate things.
Yeah. And it makes so much more sense once you understand 2-star is physically assaulting the Pokemon, and 3 and 4-star are specific things that can happen, like, very specific things. Like, every Pokemon in the entire game has 2 very specific special things that can happen. And those are the 3 and 4-star ratings. And then 1-star is literally everything else. And that makes sense. I get it. But the game doesn't explain it at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it sure doesn't. We've both rolled credits and I still don't I don't have any fucking clue how the game differentiates.
I literally didn't understand until I looked it up on Cerebi like an hour ago.
Well, then what did Cerebi say?
Exactly what I just said. Like, every single Pokemon in the game has 2 specific special things that can happen. And those are the 3 and 4-star pictures. Weird. And then 2-star is physically assaulted.
And it comes to a point where, like, it feels like they saw people joking about how, oh, this game's going to be 3 hours long like the original one. And then for some reason took that as, like, extreme criticism and then overcorrected to a substantial degree.
Mm.
And I can't say for sure that's what happened, but that's sure what feels like happened. But, like, overall, like, the problem is I still really like the game a lot. I had a great time with new Pokemon Snap. It's that, and then, all of the Illumina Pokemon sucked.
The Illumina spots are, like, not only are they slow and boring, but they are also padding personified, because I made a point not to explain this to you until we were here recording. So Joe, which Pokemon did you get pictures of in the Meganium Illumina spot?
I got an Eevee and a Meganium.
Okay, so you didn't find the Sylveon sleeping in the bushes on the right, and you didn't find the Comfies flying up above you during the first Crystal Bloom, and you didn't find the Shaman that was on the top of the cliff on the left during the Crystal Bloom, and you didn't find the Combies over at the end of the stage, which you did with lighting up the Crystal Blooms near the tree and then throwing an apple at the tree right after, or the Hoot Hoot. Hidden in the tree that you needed to throw an apple onto the other side of the tree. Not the side close to you, but the opposite side.
I mean, I saw all those Pokemon elsewhere, but I didn't know they were in that fucking level.
Well, you didn't see Shaman elsewhere.
I did. Shaman shows up. Shaman shows up in the daytime and nighttime of the national park.
I did not know that.
Higher levels. It blends in with the grass a lot of the time because it's Shaman. But yes, I did get Shaman.
But that's the thing, like, there are a lot of Pokemon hidden in the Illumina spots, but they're hidden pretty deep in there. Like, they're not easy to find. And that's kind of ridiculous.
Which is unfortunate, because then you could be like me and be like, cool, the Wishy-Washy level is 6 hours long. And these Wishy-Washy are literally the only things I can take a picture of. And I'm just so fucking bored.
And like, the final Illumina spot in the game, like, I don't want to spoil what Pokemon it is, but, like, I'm sure you know exactly which one I'm talking about. Like, I don't know what you're supposed to do in Research Level 1 there. Like, I never, ever got a good picture of that Pokemon.
I mean, I don't think there's a problem with saying what it is. It's just, if people are listening to this, I would hope they've played it.
Not necessarily.
That's fair. I mean, it came out of left field for me, even though, like, looking back on it, with hindsight, like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes all sense.
I think it's a cool story moment. It's just a matter of, like, hey, what am I supposed to do to get a functional photo of this Pokemon? Like, it's kind of stupid.
And the Illumina spots just kind of feel like they saw Rainbow Cloud and were like, oh, we gotta have more than one level like that. Except they forgot that nobody likes Rainbow Cloud. Rainbow Cloud sucks. It's not a good level. And it's the same problem, because it's like, all right, so you gotta like keep throwing shit at this one Pokemon so you can maybe get a good picture of it. And it's the only Pokemon on the level, and this level's like 2 times as long as it needs to be. What's that? You are having trouble hitting a Steelix that is moving incredibly fast with your stupid glowy balls? Fuck you. I hate that Steelix. That Steelix fucking sucked.
I would describe New Pokemon Snap as a more polarizing version of Pokemon Snap. The stuff that's good is better than it ever was, but the stuff that's not good is way worse than it ever was. So,
and that's kind of why I hope they make another one, because I kind of hope they can improve on that stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know if they will make another one. This feels like a once-in-a-lifetime sequel, considering it took 22 fucking years for it to come out. But
it all depends on how well it sells.
I imagine it sold pretty all right. I hope. I don't know. I haven't looked into any sales numbers. I don't know if Nintendo's released any sales.
There aren't really any sales numbers.
Yeah.
No, they give sales numbers in their quarterly earnings reports, and that's about it. And there hasn't been one since this game came out.
But yeah, I think that it is a very good game with some real valleys. And that's, I don't know. I don't have much more to say other than one, Phil can jump into a lake and not come back up. I love that Todd is in the game. That was a really nice nod. I don't know why he's in the game other than, look, it's the guy from the other game.
I mean, that's exactly why he's in the game.
That's exactly why he's in the game. Like, I kind of expected him to show up and be like, yeah, I did this once, and then leave, but he's there for the whole rest of the story at that point. Rita is fun. She's very cute. I like her.
I don't know. She took an awful long time to stop explaining how to press a single button to throw an apple.
Well, that's just because Bandai Namco thinks you're an idiot. But also, Professor Mirror wouldn't know a good picture if it bit him in the ass.
I miss Professor Oak lightly negging me. And there's just something about the way, like, at the end of every stage when Professor Mirror softly says, "It's time." Like if you're at the airport gate and you have to say goodbye to your loved ones to get on the plane, and he's like, "It's time." Like, it fucking, I don't know why, but I hate that voice line so much.
He's telling you that it's time to put Phil down. You've tried your best and he's fought a good fight, but it's time. It's time.
I don't know why that one voice line sets me off so much.
But also, there are fully voiced cutscenes in this game, and that's fucking weird for a Pokemon game. That's really weird for a Pokemon game.
I also don't understand the consistency or lack thereof of when cutscenes get to be fully animated and fully voiced.
Yeah. Well, sometimes they'll do like a big intro and be like, "Oh man, this fully animated scene of us looking at the map of the islands, and now let's go back to the visual novel." Like, it's really fucking weird. I really like this game. I think it's one of my favorite games of the year so far, though I imagine a lot of shit is going to fucking avalanche on top of it. I as much as I love it, I think it'll be a miracle if it stays in my top 5 by the end of the year. Like, there's just too much shit that could be very good coming out. And the jank with all of the grinding and the illumina spots and how much those fucking blow.
This is a game that I enjoyed. I'm happy I bought it, and I'm gonna remember it fondly, but I'm also not really gonna consider it like, oh yeah, that was like one of the games. Gotta play that one. There's
too much wrong with it.
Also, why'd they change Todd's voice actor? Todd's old voice actor is literally still voicing Pokemon characters to this day. I mean, he's the modern voice of Professor Oak.
I mean, did he have any voice lines in the original? He just had yeah, that's it, right? That's the only thing he said? Like in the anime, yes.
Yeah, he was also, well, it's the same voice actor in the anime and those little voice lines. And they kept his Japanese voice, so.
Well, Japan, they don't recast shit ever.
I know.
Unless the person dies.
I think that's a good way to do it.
I don't know. If that was how we handled it, Vic Mignogna would still be voicing things. Oh, I should not say that, otherwise they'll come for me.
I mean, that's okay. If RGG Studios' judgment is anything to go off of, you can get rid of a Japanese voice actor too.
Well, if the Yakuza series is anything to go off of, you can get rid of anybody. Yeah, all you gotta do is find them with drugs. And then and even if they didn't have drugs, well, too late. They have been erased from existence. What I'm saying is that we need to smuggle some cocaine into Phil's bag, and we will get a new character who doesn't suck. This is my platform for president. Let's talk about the soundtrack and then get out of here. There's not much to talk about on the soundtrack.
Yeah, kind of.
It's a fine soundtrack. I think it's a good soundtrack. It's just, if you asked me to, like, name off any songs I liked off the top of my head, the only one that really comes to mind is the day route of Florio National Park. that's it. That's the only song that like comes to mind at all.
I think that this soundtrack is like, it feels like the soundtrack to the line to get on the ride at Disney World. Like you can really hear this in like the daytime jungle. Like this is just the music they play at Disney World to get on the ride.
That, or it kind of feels like a lot of it outside of the national park thing, which is like a lot of the main theme of new Pokemon Snap. It feels like what would be the score for a nature documentary, where the score is not actually that important. For a nature documentary, it needs to give that vibe, and I think this soundtrack does very well at giving each level its own specific vibe, but that doesn't make it a memorable soundtrack. And I want to make it clear, by saying that I do not mean that this game has a bad soundtrack. This game's soundtrack works for what kind of game it is perfectly, but unfortunately that comes with the side effect of I don't remember any of it.
Yeah, I've like really been trying to, and it's just not coming to me. Which is weird for how much you have to repeat some of the levels.
Yeah, and I think that's the most telling thing, is that you play each level like 3 or 4 times minimum.
More likely more than that.
Likely more, and it's still, I have no memory of what any, like I'm looking at a list of tracks right now. I don't remember what any of these sound like.
The only song I remember is that terrible melody player. It's so much worse than the original games.
The original game had 3 of them you could cycle through. And they all did the same thing, but you could cycle through them.
It's such a worse melody. Like, yeah, it's such a step down from the original. Just bring back the original songs.
Also, just make it a Pokeflute. Pokeflutes still exist in the world of Pokemon. They didn't go away because they invented speakers.
Well, that's the modern Pokemon company just being afraid to be self-referential.
Yeah, I think the only song that I think we both agreed was, hey, that's pretty good, was the Illumina spot with the Volcarona.
Yeah, this one, like, weirdly goes hard.
Which I also hate that Illumina spot because I couldn't hit them. They're too far away. One thing that I think would solve most of my problems with, like,
a sniper
lot of
rifle.
The throwing shit. Well, yes, that would solve some problems in a very specific way, but I'm not talking about... You can't take pictures of a... Well, I guess if you're, like, trophy hunting, you can. But we're not doing that here. It would be a reticle and a thing that shows what arc you're going to be throwing at, because that doesn't exist in this fucking game.
The gyro controls definitely make it easier, but it's also like sometimes that throwing arc just felt odd.
Like if I could see where it would land, and like generally, like imagine, does Breath of the Wild do it? Like it does, like this little white wisp of almost smoke-like shit that, like, when you're throwing a bomb, it's telling you where that fucking bomb is gonna, like, the arc it's gonna be thrown at.
Breath of the Wild does not do that, I think, no.
What game am I thinking of? I know
Skyward
some
Sword.
game does that. Skyward Sword, yes, that would be it. And like, why
Well, it's
isn't
even,
that
like-
in the game?
I think a big thing that really messes me up with the throwing arc for the apples and the illumina balls is that I'm pretty sure that the higher you aim, the harder you throw the ball too. So height directly translates to throwing power, which gameplay mechanics wise is a good thing because it greatly extends your range, but it's not very intuitive. Like, you kind of assume that no matter where you're aiming, you're going to throw it with the same power and gravity is going to take over. And that's just not the case. And I think that's why it's so hard to aim.
Like, hitting things far away from you is fucking an endeavor. The entire game. It never got easier for me. That's why I had to replay Steelix like 4 fucking times, because I couldn't hit him.
Gyro controls help a lot, but it is definitely a kind of weird issue.
But yeah, I think it's a good game. I think it's probably one of the better Pokemon spin-offs there is. But man, I hope they make another one and like trim some of the fat off of. And I didn't think I'd be saying that about Pokémon Snap, the game that historically has no fat to trim.
Yeah, that game had no filler at all. Like, so it's kind of crazy.
And again, it kind of just feels like, it really does feel like they just saw the jokes about how short the original game was and just said, "Ah, shit," and then overcorrected super hard. I don't know. It's fucking weird. It's a bizarre thing to say about a Pokemon Snap game, but like, it's good. It's still good. I still had a good time with it.
Yeah. And I mean, like, you just have to like rewind this episode, take a listen to the start. Like, there's a lot to like about this game. It's
like
just
15 minutes. We just talked about the things we liked.
It's just, there's also a lot of criticisms that I have, and I feel like a lot of people are like really not willing to see those criticisms, but they are definitely there.
Yeah. And again, this is to say, like, you know, you can like a game and still like point out some of the things that game doesn't do well. Y'all know that, right? Y'all know making a criticism of a game doesn't automatically mean you hate it.
Okay, well, let's not have 2 episodes in a row that are just us soapboxing about game critiques.
Okay, that's all I got about new Pokemon Snap. I don't have anything else.
I don't either.
Animal Crossing will be soon, probably, statistically. I don't know. I can't tell the future, even though I am a wizard.
And if we don't happen to get this bonus episode out before Nintendo's E3 Direct, then we're probably editing in us talking about whatever character got announced there right after this.
Shit,
Otherwise,
I have to make sure this comes out before that. Oh no. Well, bye everybody.